Hello, mathematicians. Hope y'all are doing well. Today, we have a new lesson, lesson 2.2, which is about translations. Now, these are not translating languages. This is about geometric translations. So our objective today is that I can explain what a translation is and how to apply a translation to a shape. Now, there's several things that we'll be doing in this video. First, we're going to update the translations page in our notebook because it is a little bit outdated and we aren't going to be covering as much, and that's okay. So I'm going to show you how to do that in this video, how to update that page, and then we'll be taking notes on translations. So let's start by opening our digital notebook. So I'm going to go to my Google Drive. And by now, hopefully you know how to get to Google Drive. But if you need help, please let me know. I'm going to open up my notebook, and mine is actually under video. And we're doing the English one. So here are my notes. Now, if you already updated the page in class, then obviously you can skip this section and just go straight into translations. If you wanted to review that part, perfect. But if you missed class, then you need to watch this part because I'm going to show you how to update the page, specifically page 4. So if you scroll down to page 4, slide 4 here, notice that it has two parts. It has vector notation on one side, and it has coordinate notation on the other. We're not going to be talking about vector notation in this class, so we can get rid of that part and just have coordinate notation. And that's what we're going to do. So to get the new page, we're going to copy and paste the new page into our notebook. You're going to go to modules, and I'm using period 2 just cause, but these steps are the same for whatever period you have me for. Go to modules, and this will not be under notes. In fact, it'll be down under 2.2. It'll be under the week 5 module, 2.2 translations, and you'll see a module called Unit 2 Notebook Update 2.2. Click on that. The notebook page link below is an update to our Unit 2 notebook. You're going to replace page 4 of your Unit 2 notebook with this page. To copy on your keyboard, you're going to press Control plus C, well, not the plus sign, but you're going to press Control and C together to copy the page, and then Control and V together to paste. If you're on a Mac, you use Command and C together to copy, and Command and V together to paste. So let's click on the link here, and you'll see our new and improved updated page. Now this is important. To copy this page, you need to click on the slide over here on the left-hand side. When you click on it, you should see the outline change to orange. You need to make sure that the slide is selected. You press Control C and it's not selected, it's not going to copy anything. So once you have the slide selected on your keyboard, copy, so press Control and C. And then you're going to go to your notebook. Make sure that slide 4 is selected, click on it to select it, and then press Control and V together. And you should have the new note pasted. Over here it says Import Slide, just click Do Not Link. So now we want to delete this page, we don't need it anymore. So you can right click, press the 2 buttons on your trackpad together, right click, and you can press delete. Or you can come up to the menu bar under edit and then delete. Or if your keyboard has it, just press the delete button on your keyboard. I'm not sure if the backspace button works. Oh, so backspace works as well. You can select it and press backspace, and that'll delete it from your notebook. So now we have our new and improved translations page. So let's start taking some notes. I want to zoom in and start from the top. So if you haven't done the entrance ticket for today yet, you will have to do that. But if you haven't done it, that's okay. We're going to talk about what a translation is. So a translation is, we're going to make a text box here to fill this in, a movement or a slide of a shape. So when I have a translation, when I do a translation, I'm moving a shape around. And that's all I'm really doing. I'm not rotating it. I'm not flipping it. All that I'm doing, the only thing that I'm doing is moving this shape. Let me show you an example. Let's say the heart. If I draw a heart here, I'm going to make it, there's no pink. I'll make it purple. Close enough. So this heart, if I move this heart around, I drag it, I click and drag it, I'm translating it. I'm moving it around. When you do a translation, that's the only thing you're allowed to do. So if I spin it like that, that is not a translation anymore. That is a rotation. And we'll talk about that later on. So translation only refers to moving or sliding the shape around. So let's talk about the coordinate notation for translation. This is going to be the type of notation we'll see the most often. So it's important to be able to recognize a translation just by looking at the notation, the way the coordinate is written. Now this is also known as a rule. So I'm going to make a text box here and I will type aka rule. The rule tells me how I'm going to be changing my shape. So I need to pay attention to that rule so that I know how to change the shape. I'm going to make an arrow as well. I want it to point the other way. Make sure that you know this is the rule. Now, how do we fill out the rule? Here, we'll have x plus the letter A. And I'll make that a little bit bigger. And on the other one, we'll have, we'll have y plus B. A and B here are going to represent different types of shifts. We're going to move this shape. So A represents the horizontal shift. So here I'll put horizontal. And B will represent the vertical shift. And I need you to understand why. Because if I have, look at where A is, right? And it's next to the X. So we know that the X axis is the horizontal axis. So however much I add my X coordinate by, which is what A is how much I'm moving it. Also, B, since I'm adding that to the Y, remember that Y is the vertical axis. So B will obviously tell me how much I move this point vertically. Now, another thing to remember here, and I'm going to make a text box here on the side, is that if my A is positive, then I will be moving to the right. But if my A is negative, that moves my shape to the left. Similarly, with my B, my vertical shift, a plus sign, a positive number for B, will move my shape up, and a negative will move my shape down. Let's take a look at an example here. Again, if you're watching this video and you haven't copied these yet, you can pause the video. As long as you're paused, I'll wait for you. But I'm going to move on to the example. Triangle CDE has vertices C of 2, -1, D 7, -4, and E 4, -6. And here is my triangle CDE already drawn out. And you can see why I call it triangle CDE, because I have points C, D, and E that create this triangle. So I want to transform this shape. I want to translate it. And you see that my rule for my translation is here. I'm going to draw a box around it. I'll make the fill transparent, and I'll make the outline, let's say, blue. I'll make this a little bit thicker. So this is my rule. This is what tells me how I'm going to translate. Now remember, the signs tell me which direction, and the numbers tell me by how many units, how many of these little squares I move. Now it's simple to count, right? So for example, if I'm looking for C prime, and let me make a note about that too, that this little apostrophe here means that the way I say this is C prime. And the same thing for D prime and E prime. That little apostrophe means that I added the word prime to that. I'm going to make a little arrow here as well. And that's backwards. There we go. Make this a tiny bit bigger, and I'll make it green. So again, I want to find the coordinates for C prime. And one way that I can do it is by counting, right? Because since my X, I'm subtracting 3. -3 means I move 3 units to the left. So I'll go 1, 2, and 3. And that puts me at this spot. In fact, let me use the scribble tool to draw it in. I'm going to go 1, 2, and 3. And then from there, I know that I'm also moving 8 units up. So from there, I'm going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I know that my point must be here. And for some reason, my scribble didn't save, but it's okay, because I remember where my point was. And that would be my C prime right there. But imagine if you have to do this for every single point, every single time, it kind of gets tiring. So the best way to evaluate a translation is to do the math, to plug in your coordinates that you have, and find the coordinates that way. So for example, over the top of my XY, these represent my pre-image. So this is the image. The pre-image is what I start with, and we'll define those terms in a little bit as well. I forgot to do that first, sorry. But my pre-image has the coordinates 2, -1. So those are my original coordinates, and those are my original coordinates for point C. Now, according to my rule, what I'm going to be doing is to my X value, my 2, I'm going to be subtracting 3. So I put in 2 minus 3. And my Y value, it tells me that I'm going to add 8. So I have -1 plus 8. Now all I got to do is plug these into a calculator. But I don't need a calculator because I'm a genius. Not really, but I'm good at math. So 2 minus 3 will be -1. So let me put in -1 here. And on the y side, I have -1 plus 8, so that'll give me +7. So I got the coordinates this way. So I can verify these coordinates with the point that we drew earlier. So -1, I go 1 to the left, and now I need to go 7 up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And that's where our C prime originally was. So we're on the right track. So now let's do the same thing for D prime and E prime. So for D, my original pre-image coordinates for D are 7 and -4. Let me put the parentheses because it looks weird without them. So I got 7 and -4. So now I'm going to replace the coordinates in my rule. So my 2 is now a 7, that's my x coordinate, and my y coordinate is now -4. So 7 minus 3, and I'm going to copy these coordinates and put them down here. And make them a little bigger first though. I'm going to copy these down to the bottom for D. And so for my x coordinate, 7 minus 3, I know that's going to be +4. -4 plus 8, that's also going to give me 4. So the coordinates for D prime is 4, 4. Now finally, I'm going to do it for E prime. So I take my points for E, which are my pre-image coordinates, my original, 4, -6. I plug them into my rule, 4 minus 3, -6 plus 8. And now I do the math, and I'll get the coordinates for my image, my translated shape. And 4 minus 3 gives me +1. -6 plus 8 gives me +2. And so here are the coordinates for my image, my new transformed shape, translated shape. Now, if you drag your notes to the right, you're actually going to see the triangle already here. This is my image, C prime, D prime, and E prime, right? So I know that C prime is here. I already verified that coordinate. So if I click and drag this over to where that point is, so that C prime and that are on top of each other, we can verify that the rest of these coordinates match up to where they're supposed to be. D prime is 4, +4. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then E prime is 1, 2. So I go 1 and then 1, 2. So our notes, our image is verified to be correct. At the bottom, describe the transformation in a sentence. I will leave this for you guys to do on your own, and I would love to hear about what you've written. So please let me know once you've written this sentence, what did you write? How would you describe this transformation in your own words? Now let's talk about vocabulary a little bit. If I go to slide number 3, I have a couple of vocabulary words that we need to define here. First word is transformation itself. So what is a transformation? A transformation, and I'm going to write a transformation, is a change in a shape's size, position, or orientation. So the way that I can transform a shape is by changing its size, changing its position like we just talked about with translation, or changing its orientation by spinning it, by flipping it, changing the direction that it faces. Rigid motion is next, and what rigid motion means is the shape can change, or rather can have its position and orientation changed, but not its size. So when we talk about rigidity in geometry, rigid means that the size of this shape is exactly the same and not changing. I can change where it's at, translate it. I can do that. I can flip this shape, I can spin it, I can rotate it, and it would still be rigid. But as soon as I change its size, it is no longer rigid. Let me show you a quick example. I'm going to draw 2 lightning bolts here. Actually, I'm going to draw one and make a copy of the other one. So I have these 2 lightning bolts, and since one is a copy of the other, we know that they're exactly the same. This, I don't like gray, let's do green, and this purple one. My green is going to be my original shape. My purple will be the one that I apply transformations to. Now, I can rotate this, right? And that's changing the orientation of this shape. I can flip it by using the flipping options like we did in symmetry last time. I can flip it horizontally. I can flip it vertically. I can do both at the same time like I just did. And its size is still not changing. I can change its position, translate it, move it around. Size is still not changing, so our shape is still rigid. But as soon as I do this, now the shape is no longer rigid because the size is different. Whether I make that bigger or smaller, or I skew it one direction or the other, doesn't matter. These shapes are no longer rigid. Let's talk about pre-image and image. Pre-image would be like the green lightning bolts up here. The pre-image is the original shape that is started from. So the pre-image is just whatever shape I'm starting with, my original shape. I'm going to make this bigger. Now the image would be like the purple lightning bolts here. So the image is the shape after all the transformations are applied. So the shape after all the transformations are applied. And yes, we can apply more than one transformation, and we'll talk about how to do that in a future lesson, but not right now. And once we got these notes, we are done with today's lesson. So as always, if you have questions, you need extra help, you need some more examples maybe to work on, let me know. I'll be more than happy to help you learn. That's my job after all. So let me know if you got any questions. That's the end of today's lesson. So hit me up if you got questions. If not, then I'll see you in class. Have a good day.